last saw you battling King Philip and, walking away with your newborn daughter. But you've fallen from grace this time round. So exactly how much of a struggle is season 2 going to be for Landry?
Yeah, so season 2 is built very much as a redemption story for Landry. After his transgressions of season 1, he's definitely paying the consequences of that, and he's at his lowest ebb. I think that he's ultimately suicidal, but he has his daughter, and she is the thing that's keeping him alive. So he gives her up because he knows that he's dangerous, and that I think just being in proximity to her, he realizes that King Philip is going to hound him down and find him. So he knows that he needs to let her go in that capacity, but also he knows that he needs to let her go because he feels that everything he touches turns to dust. He thinks that he's toxic, and so he returns to the temple in search of redemption in the eyes of God and in the eyes of his brothers, and he isn't met with welcome arms. And it's a good journey for Landry. It's very well written, and it's a deconstruction and a rebuilding of him and of his ego, and yeah.
I've actually seen the first 2 episodes, and just those 2 episodes, it's like, God, this guy is really going through it, and it's just from the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, it was funny actually. When I was filming it, I began to have this huge crisis of confidence, and really started to doubt myself and dislike myself. It was very intense, and I realised that it was because I was going through what Landry was going through every day, not only kind of emotional soul searching and self-hate, but he gets beaten up every single day.
Yeah. And he whips himself as well.
I whip myself. I whipped myself so good that the whip went round my back, got me on my nipple. That was a real stinger. But yeah, I've either got my face in mud or whipping myself on the nipples. That's the. It was a tough few months.
It's only 8 episodes, isn't it? So,
it is.
are we going to see him on this path all the way through, or do things change for him without giving away spoilers?
Sure. Well, so Landry is he's stripped of his status as a Templar, and he's made to train with the initiates, and he's trained by this guy called Talus, who's played by Mark Hamill. He's kind of like a medieval drill sergeant, and he's lumped in with these young knights who ultimately don't know their arse from their elbow, and Landry goes in, and he, through his relationship with these young men, he starts to he becomes this kind of like brotherly figure for them, and he guides them through the kind of trials and tribulations of the season, and through him guiding them through this, he starts to kind of like learn about himself, and he starts to realize that he has a purpose, and that arc does take us all the way to episode 7. There's a great moment in episode 7 where Landry finally kind of lets go of all control and let go of his ego and gives himself over to his God, and it's a very powerful moment.
Okay. I'm not a God person.
Anyway. I mean, me neither. But it's, I'm not a God person either. But I'm atheist. My family are atheists. I grew up in that.
Yeah.
But faith, you've got to realise that in the 13th century, faith was as real as you and me sitting opposite each other. God was ever present. It's such a huge part of their lives, and I'm interested in exploring what that faith is. And because I don't have it in my life. It was interesting to kind of try and figure that out. But yeah, when you're making a show like this, you've got to stick to the reality. And I was kind of like thinking about what for me, is the idea of giving over control to like a higher power. And I think that we all do that at some point. We have so much fear in our lives. I mean, I do anyway. Fear of death, just fear of everything, and we're dictated by it, and so we search for control. And Landry definitely searches for some kind of semblance of control in his life. But actually, as soon as you let go of it, the control and allow yourself to move through life and allow life to take you on its journey. I think that there's a freedom in that, and even though I'm not religious, that really resonates with me. You know, that life is this thing that's going to carry on going, and you just kind of got to jump in the stream and let it carry you rather than try and control it, because you never will be able to.
Yeah. And if history tells us anything, it tells us that in those times that humans were actually really quite brutal beings. And again, with the first season, the action sequences and the battles, they were really quite brutal. Are we going to get that again this time round even more? And how hard is it to get into that?
Yeah. The battle scenes are the action has kind of been like turned up to 11. In episode 5 alone, I have more fighting in that one episode than I have in the whole of season 1 combined. So yeah, it's a lot, and it's really physically demanding, really, really tough. The costume weighs around 23 kilograms, so you know, after a few hours that's fine, but when you're wearing that for anything between 12 and 18 hours a day, it really starts to kind of like wear you out, so you have to be in really good nick.
Physical conditions.
Yeah, and I broke both of my toes on the second day of filming, which was a nightmare, because you know, the thing about television is it's an absolute machine. It doesn't stop for anyone. You know, you just have to get on the train and go, and it won't stop for any broken bones. And so you have to be physically prepared to take those knocks and bruises and just dust yourself down and carry on. Yeah,
I think it was in episode 2 where you're training outside, but it's raining and it's really muddy, and you've got to climb up that really steep vertical wall, base stone wall, and slippery. I mean, how hard is that? I mean, how long did it take?
That was really hard because I had salmonella poisoning. So I'd been like puking and all night I hadn't slept. Had a doctor come over, put a drip in my arm, stick a little jab in my butt, and then went and had to carry 4 guys on my shoulders in freezing cold rain. Yeah, that was a grim day.
It looked grim.
It looks good though, doesn't it?
It does look good. Yeah, it does. So you've already mentioned Mark, and we have a few new faces this season. I mean, you spent a lot of time obviously working with him on this one. So what was it like working with him, and was you surprised at his kind of range, because he's a completely different character to what most people probably know him for?
Yeah. I think that's probably, you know, Mark. He's a big fan of the show anyway. But I think the part, you know, we were chatting about it, and he was like, this is something the kind of part I never get offered, and so I couldn't turn it down. And I think that it will be a nice surprise for people who watch it, you know, to see him in a completely different light. And he's brilliant, you know. He's an incredibly committed, hard-working actor, and it's Mark that you've never really seen him before, and he's a legend, you know. My brother is one of the new characters on this show as well. He plays one of the initiates, so I have all my scenes with him as well. And we were obsessed with Star Wars when we were kids, and it was pretty hard to be cool around Mark when we first met him. Yeah, accidentally making like
selfies and
yeah, but selfies that he's unaware of. It's like he's always like lurking in the background. It's really hard not to make like lightsaber noises and stuff around him when you first start working with him, but he's a real sport. Yeah,
was you actually tempted to try and get any like Star Wars secrets out of him?
You know, Mark, I mean, he wouldn't tell us about any like future episodes, but he was more than happy to kind of regale these really great stories about shooting those films in the 70s, and he's a great storyteller, Mark, and very, very funny. So he was a great person to have on set. You know, in between those long takes where you get really bored, and you just kind of, hey Mark, tell us a story, and he'll fill us in.
So back to the show. Now there's some pretty bad blood between Landry and Gawain.
Gawain.
Gawain. Never say that properly. That's Welsh, isn't it?
Gawain. Like yeah, I think it's from the Arthurian legends. Gawain.
Okay. Yeah. Do they get a chance to air out their differences this time round?
Yeah, you can expect all of those, the big kind of builds and those big clashes to come together. What's great is everyone's really separate for a very long time, and the writers have constructed so it just kind of like it boils and boils and boils, and then finally they'll meet, and there's like these big explosions, and they're separated again, and it's really fun to watch. And Gawain and Landry have a big couple of moments where they leather the absolute crap out of each other. And it's fun to play.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
As we know, King Philip, in reality, he disbanded the Knights Templar in one way or another. Do we get to see that wrapped up this season, or do you think there's going to be scope for a third?
Yeah, so I mean the show's called Knightfall, it's not called Night Rising, and so the show is absolutely heading towards the Friday the 13th, 1307, and I don't want to give too much away, but there is a pretty mean climax, you know, where historically Philip rounded up the Templars, tortured them, tried them, and then burnt them at the stake. And so there will be some torture, there will be some trials, and there might be some stakes.
But that's all you're getting.
Yeah.
Okay. And finally, going back to one of your past roles in Downton Abbey, now that the film's coming out, are you quite gutted that you didn't get a part in that, or was you happy to move away?
No, I wasn't disappointed not to be part in that. You know, I wasn't in the last season, and I was. Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I'm friends with all the guys that are doing it, so I've heard it's going to be good. So I'm excited to see it. Yeah.
Is there any kind of film that you really want to do next?
I'm about to shoot a film in LA next, where I get to play this psychopathic LA cop with Ed Harris. So I'm excited to do that. It's going to be fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching. Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!